I'm Cyril Jordan. I used to be in a band called the Flamin Groovies, and my new group is called Magic Christian. And this will be the story of how the song Teenage Head originated. From the very beginning, it actually is very clear in my mind, and I can give it to you step by step. It started with an LSD trip that took me down to Big Sur Folk Music Festival. And this was about 1969. And at that time, the Groovies weren't really headlining in those days at the Fillmore or the Avalon in California. But we were pretty well known backstage, so I had access to the backstage area. And I met Kim Fowley, who I idolized because of the connection that he had with the great song Alley Oop. He was one of the Hollywood Argyles, and that song is probably what Teenage did for you, Alley Oop did for me, you know. So I couldn't believe it. And of course I'm on acid too, so the astonishment is really personified by a million times. Anyway, Mr. Fowley had me in hysterics, constantly talking about Teenage Head. You know, we're gonna find Teenage Head, or there's Teenage Head, she's Teenage Head, whatever. And you know, and people were throwing us out of our dressing rooms. It was just hilarious. I laughed so hard that the next day, my jaw had locked, had frozen, had stayed open for like 8 hours. I mean, because I'd laughed all day.
Wow. Yeah,
you know?
It kind of sounds like you would be.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic memory. Anyway, I ended up becoming extremely good friends with Kim, and because of my being so naive and young, he ended up being angry at me for about 30 years, and I'll tell you the reason why. I came back to San Francisco sober and told Roy about the Teenage Head escapade. And we decided to write a song. He says, well, let's write a song called Teenage Head. So I did the music. I came up with the guitar part. And the reason why it's got that doom-doodle-doom, you know, we were hanging out with Jimmy Page because we were living with in Hollywood with my oldest and dearest friend, Michelle Meyer, who has passed, long since passed, and God rest her soul. And she had a place down there in Hollywood, and she was living with her friend, Miss Pamela. So Pamela was dating Jimmy, so Jimmy was coming over, and the Groovies were like in the living room in sleeping bags, you know. And there's a connection between Led Zeppelin and the Groovies on Teenage Head. We were hanging out with them about 6 months before they released a record, before they did a gig, before anybody knew that there was a group called Led Zeppelin. So we knew about a Whole Lot of Love. You know, you know, one of the most incredible like guitar parts ever on a guitar, you know. So we decided to do a takeoff. And it was going to be kind of in the vein of if the Mothers of Invention had done Led Zeppelin.
I can hear that.
What would it be like?
I can hear that.
So it was kind of a parody, you know. And Roy and I in those days, we would always laugh so much that people would throw us out of the backstage or out of their parties because we were just having too much fun, you know. So everything we did always had a slant of humor on it, you know. And with the title Teenage Head, Roy had a field day with the lyrics. You know what I mean? Just I think the only line I came up with was, "I'm the child of atom bombs, right there in Vietnam's. I'm you, you are me." But everything else was written by Roy. I did all the music and played all the guitars because when we went to cut Teenage in New York at Bell Sound Studios, Tim Lynch had been busted by the police for dealing heroin about 2 weeks before. So all of a sudden, it's George, myself, Danny, and Roy in one of the major studios of all time. I mean, this is where the Drifters cut on Broadway. You know, the Stones cut Satanic Magic. The Spoonful cut everything there.
This is in New York.
Yeah, Bell Sound Studios, you know, 1650 Broadway. I'll tell you, man, we were in the middle of New York. I plugged my Marshall in, turn it on, get ready to get a level, and WNEW's coming through my amp, like real loud, you know, radio, you know. I said, well, you know, how are we going to record here, you know, with this? So one of the engineers comes out with a roll of aluminum foil and wraps it around the cord coming out of the amp that goes into the wall, you know, all the way to the wall, and that did it right there, you know. So yeah, we cut Teenage, and we forgot to give Kim Fowley credit. because obviously he deserves credit because he wrote he gave us the title, you know. But we were just kids, man. We weren't thinking, and it was just because we were naive that it wasn't because we were going to steal the publishing. This is going to be a huge hit, you know. We didn't think anybody'd hear the damn thing, you know what I mean? And Bogart, who ran Buddha and Kama Sutra, Neil Bogart, and he was a wonderful guy. Out of all the guys that ran record companies, I love that man more than anybody. And he went on to form Casablanca Records later on, but he died very young.
Bogart, Casablanca, that's right.
You know,
Kiss.
I think he died about 76. You know, cancer.
There was a picture in Rock Scene of him with Kiss, and he's all made up like they were.
Yeah, well, he was a fantastic guy.
Little guy.
Little guy,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember him.
Yeah. When we went to do the record deal at Kama Sutra, all of us were in his office, and he had this huge crate, you know, 4 feet by 3 feet, and it had a painted stencil on there, "Danger, Wild Mongoose." You know what I mean? And we were like going, well, what's in there? And he takes this can and he lifts the lid. You know, it's like one of those snake cans. You know, you open up and this stupid snake jumps out. But this thing was this giant piece of fur. It scared the hell out of us. Danny almost had a heart attack. You know. But yeah, those days were fantastic days. But we did manage to blow it with Kim. And even after that, no, it's funny because I remember now, before I went to England and Roy left the band, Kim was sending me these acetates of songs he had written with Mars Bonfire. And I think I may still have some of them at the house, but they were total filth. I mean, it was this one song called "It's a Wild Wild Party." It was a wild, wild party, and a dog came in and shit on the floor. I called Kim. I said, Kim, we can't cut this stuff.
He wasn't going for AM.
This is still 1971. You know. So anyway, I went to England. I took band to England. Roy left, and I lost touch with Kim. Back in the late 70s, because of Miss Pamela, I got back in touch with him, but he was very uptight. And it took years, almost a decade, before I began to realize what I had done to him. Gladly, last year, we played Hollywood at the Knitting Factory, and Kim was the MC. And we kissed and made up, and thank God for that, because Mr. Fowley is one of the legendary guys of Hollywood. His father is one of my favorite actors. He was a character actor, and he's in over 400 movies. Douglas Fowley, you know. Kind of looks like Kim, too. So that's my story about teenage Ed.
I said, what are you talking about? The two finest keyboard instruments in the world are sitting there, and you're going to make me play a synthesizer for our whole set at Massey Hall when they're sitting there non-used? And he made me play that fucking set on that goddamn fucking synthesizer. I can't believe it.